Sean Hogan. Thanks very much, Sean. It's a privilege and good afternoon, everybody. It's a privilege and an honour for myself to be here. My son Robert, who would be Sean Hogan's great grandson. We've just actually come from a visit to the Hogan ancestral home at Greenan, just outside Tipperary town on the Dundrum Road, and it was fascinating to see the old homestead where Sean and his younger brother Matthew would have grown up. And in the far distance, you can see the remains of what was known as the Tin Hut. And the Tin Hut was where the men who carried out the ambush here 100 years ago actually trained and planned the actual ambush. There's not much left of the Tin Hut now, but it's where young Matty would have brought tea and sandwiches and bread and butter to the men, Dan Breen, Sean Tracy, Robinson, Sean Hogan, and the rest of the ambush party as they planned the events here 100 years ago. I won't say very much, but I've just the last 24 hours have been fascinating for me watching the anniversary. I've been to several of the Solihead Beg ambush and Knocklong memorials, and yesterday was a testament to the community effort that went into bringing about such a huge event to basically a tiny village in Tipperary. And it struck me that I'm not a political person, and as the previous speaker said, politics don't have a part in remembering history. But it struck me that if the event that happened yesterday, which drew a large crowd, it was attended by one minister, but if the ambush at Solihead Beg had actually happened in Dublin, yesterday the streets of Dublin would have been closed off, and there would have been hundreds of thousands of people there. There would have been the President, there would have been the Taoiseach, and there would have been a line of Mercedes and ministerial cars. The whole cabinet would have been there. But because the events happened in a little Tipperary village, it seems to have been airbrush out of central government, and it was basically down to local community for organising the event. So it just struck me that there's a big divide between how the government and central government and Dublin views the countryside. It's just, I'm certain that it would have been it would have been like the 1916 Rising celebrations, and it probably would have been televised live by RT as well, as it should have been, and the Taoiseach should have been there, and the President. It's just a point that needs to be made. But it's the likes of people like John Connors and Eddie Stapleton who kind of keep the research going, keep in touch with, get families keep ticking over, looking for memorabilia, researching books on the likes of Sean Hogan that really inspire me. And you know, the generation that took part in the ambush and the subsequent events of the War of Independence are gone, and the generation that followed are largely gone as well. So it's really the current generation that, and the previous generation that are keeping the flame going for future generations, and it is down to community spirit. And it's you know, what happened, what could have happened, what should have happened, what shouldn't have happened. Really, that's for historians to argue about. Really, for the local community, from the ordinary man and woman and child, it's all about the events, and you have to look at them through the prism of 2019, not through the prism of 1919 and what happened. Yes, it's unfortunate lives were lost, but that's what happened, and you have to draw a line under that and move on. That's basically what happens. But the most important thing, I think, to come out of all of this is that the people remember the events. They particularly remember the people, their family, their backgrounds, what happened to them after the war. That's so important to bring out and to remember and to foster. And I think it's you know, this type of tour strikes me as fantastic. These should be going on every day of the week. If this was in America or in other countries, like the War of Independence sites, where you have the likes of Solihead Beg, you have the cemetery in St. Michael's in Tipperary, you have Knocklong, the ambush, the famous ambush there and rescue of my grandfather. These things should be just remembered. There should be interpretive centres, there should be tour buses pulling up day in, day out. I mean, it's not it's kept alive because of voluntary effort, yes, but really there should be a bigger push on to get a tourism dividend, to get people going, to really put it on the map big time. And I think if nothing else comes out of the centenary celebrations, that's what I'd like to see happen. That the next generation, youngsters, everybody remembers this. You'd pass by it sometimes. It looks great, but it really needs to be kind of, well, what's that? There should be tour buses pulling up here every day of the week. There should be historic trails. There should be tour guides. There should be craft shops associated with it. But that's what I'd like to see come out of it, and that the men and women and everybody are honoured and are remembered. Thank you very much.
1, 2, 2, 1. I joined the flying column in 1916, and conquered Sean Maiden to bury it and green. I'm arrested by free staters and sentenced for to die. Farewell to Turkey, said a galty mountain by. We went across those valleys and over hilltop green. I met a Dean Lacey, Sean Morgan and Dan Breen, Sean Mylan and his gallant men had been flying high. Farewell to Tipperary, said a galty mountain by. We trod the Dublin mountains where I was on the run. Then to night and morning where I was but free men. I trod the equal mountains as the sun was setting high. Farewell to Tipperary, said a galty mountain by. I bid farewell to Auckland now, no more I'll see again. And to the galty mountains that have claimed sheltered me, they're the men who fought for their liberty and died without a sign. Their cause never forgotten, said a galty mountain by. Their cause never forgotten, said a galty mountain by.